Well, sure good to be with all of you. Happy to see each one. I'd like to this morning continue or complete our lessons on the Song of Solomon. We've had an introduction and two lessons looking at the song, and we have that. I think most everybody that's here has heard some of the lessons anyway, as far as how the song is laid out as a drama. A young Shulamite girl from the country got caught up in the entourage of Solomon and was taken back to his residence, and he's wooing her to be another one of his wives, but she was someone intended for a shepherd boy out in the country that she loves, and there's this triangle that's going on where they're trying to convince her to become another queen of Solomon, or her heart's desire to return back and to be with her shepherd. And in this section, she gets back to her beloved at the end of the book, and we have a praise of the power of love, true love, and how strong it is. And it's again, it exalts romantic love as something created by God and something that's good. And what love ought to be is not based just on physical attraction, but also on inner qualities and friendship, and someone that you can share your life with and work with. So we have a third proposal that's offered up by Solomon, and we begin to see that he praises her external beauty, and he uses all of these terms of the city and so on to describe all of her different qualities, a lot of the things that he says. And he's impressed with her outward appearance, but it's not the kind of deep affection and respect that the shepherd would have for her. So she's as beautiful as Tirzah. Tirzah is a city that was the northern capital of Israel. After the kingdom divided, after the days of Solomon, Jeroboam took over the northern kingdom, and Rehoboam ruled over the kingdom of Judah. And Tirzah, in Solomon's day, was like the second city of Israel. It had once been a capital of the Canaanites, and you can see it located up on the east side or the west side of the Jordan Valley there, above Samaria. That particular map that shows Tirzah and Jerusalem, I was looking for a map, and it shows the place where all the different kings were buried. And you can see all of the early kings of Israel, Jeroboam and Nadab and Baasha and so on. They were buried at Tirzah. So it was a great city, a beautiful city in those days. It says, "You are as beautiful as Tirzah, my darling, as lovely as Jerusalem, and awesome as an army with banners." So again, talking about how startling she is to look upon, and her appearance like a troop of soldiers with all of their different banners that they carried into war or in parades and so on, is how attractive she is and how she gets someone's attention. She is coming more and more through her thoughts about the shepherd and her dreams that she's had, where she's lost her shepherd, that she has really got her heart set by this point on going home. And evidently he's not getting the response from her when he's speaking, just like when I'm teaching the class or preaching a sermon, I look out and sometimes I don't see the attention I'd like to see, or you see some disapproval maybe in somebody's face. Well, that's what he sees when he looks at her. She needs to turn away her eyes while he's putting on his flattery here. It says, turn your eyes away from me, for you have confused me. Your hair is like a flock of goats that have descended from Gilead. Well, he said that before too. It works with all of these other girls, and he keeps trying it, and throwing it out there again about how beautiful her hair is. It says, your teeth are like a flock of ewes. He said this before too, which have come up from their washing, all of which bear twins, and not one among them has lost her young. Your temples are like a slice of pomegranate behind your veil. So this is the third time maybe he's gone through this whole routine. And like I say, it seems to work all the other times. Well, you just say it a little sweeter and a little better and repeat what you said before. And he says there are 60 queens and 80 concubines and maidens without number. But my dove, my perfect one, is unique. She is her mother's only daughter. Isn't that really a winning thing? Says, look, I got 60 wives, and I've got all of these women, and you stand out. That, if you're really interested in the kind of love the Bible talks about and God intended from the beginning, one man for one woman for life, I don't think that would be a big appeal there, that you can be one of 60. And eventually he's going to have 700. So this is earlier in Solomon's reign is when he ran into this young girl that didn't give in to his wooing and so on, or to become one of the 60 queens and 80 concubines. These are slaves or servants that are sort of a secondary type of wife that he had, and maidens without number. But she is really number one in beauty. And then we hear the choir come in again, and it's in the plural, where they're singing the same kind of praises and emphasizing, how she should join the team, I guess, with all of them. She is a pure child of one who bore her. The maidens saw her and called her blessed. The queens and the concubines also, and they praised her, saying, "Who is this that grows like the dawn, or that grows like the dawn, and has beauty as the full moon, as pure as the sun, as awesome as the army with banners?" So again, she's just bright and shining. They talk about the phrase there about the power of the sun in that country, and how hot it is and purifying it is. And they echo what Solomon had to say about an army and banners. They've heard those lines, maybe all of them themselves, and they repeat them to her about how beautiful she is and how she should be a part of this court. And then we talk about the Shulamite's predicament. We're given a little background into how she got into this situation in the first place. Evidently, she's living there in the northern part of Israel. She's a vineyard keeper. She's in love with this shepherd. She's going out in the springtime to look at the trees and the flowers and all. And here comes Solomon and all of this parade and all of this splendor and pomp and everything. And she gets caught up in it. And before she knows it, she's being wooed by the king and taken back to the city. And she admits, she kind of got taken off guard is how she ended up there. So she says in verse 11, "I went down to the orchard of nut trees to see the blossoms of the valley, to see whether the vine had budded or the pomegranate had bloomed." So very early spring is when this all started. And it's still springtime. The kind of language is still springtime when you get to the end of the book. So these things seem to have happened just over a period of a few weeks, that all of these encounters take place. So she's swept away by this royal entourage. In verse 12, it says, "Before I was aware, my soul set over the chariots of my noble people." So the chariot comes along, she gets caught up in this whole spectacle that's going on, and before she knows it, before she was aware, she's been taken to the tent of Solomon and put among these women that he's wanting to marry, and she's gotten caught up in this whole thing. And she wants to leave. By this time, she's trying to get back to the country. She wants to turn her back on all of this. And it seems that the women of the court can see this as happening, that either in her mind or she's trying to withdraw, trying to pack her bags and get out of there. The chorus says, come back, O Shulamite." So you get this idea. She's ready to go home. She's not giving in to all of the king's praise and wooing. Come back, that we may gaze at you." So it's not some high spiritual thing about coming back. It's not some kind of great fellowship, but come back, you're so beautiful, we want to look at you. And that's sort of what this whole worldly appeal is all about. It's about her outward appearance and her beauty and being a part of the jet set there, I guess, that they had in those days. And says, why should you gaze at the Shulamite as at the dance of the two companies? Why do you want to make a spectacle out of me like it's one of the dances that traditional dances evidently they had in some of these cities where groups of girls would dance and they'd have another group that would dance and so on, and everybody would watch it just like nowadays with some of the routines that girls have in their dance routines and so on. It says, why do you want me to come back? And why would you want to just look upon me? That's not what she's looking for in her life. And then they begin to praise her beauty from, head to toe, just like Solomon had done before, trying to emphasize again and flatter her about her appearance and why she certainly should be a part of this harem that they have there. It says, how beautiful are your feet in sandals, O prince's daughter. Well, she's just a country girl, but there's a lot of noble qualities about her, just like we talk about the Bible talks about the Bereans being noble-minded. They look upon her and praise her as a prince's daughter. The curves of your hips are like jewels, and the work of the hands of an artist. Your navel is like a round goblet, which never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is like a heap of wheat, fenced about with lilies, and your breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. So again, they talk about all her perfection as far as her body and her movements. And again, you have echoed some of the things that Solomon would say to these women when he was trying to woo them in talking about her body. And they go on in verses 7 through 5. Says your neck is like a tower of ivory, and your eyes like the pools of Heshbon. Heshbon is over on the other side of Jordan from Jerusalem. It belonged to Reuben's tribe and then later to Gad. And the city, the ruins have been found of it. It was a magnificent city also with pools that were there. So they describe her eyes as like pools of water that are at Heshbon. That pool has been found, a gigantic pool that the archaeologists have found located there. So, it's another example that when the Bible talks about something, the archaeologists go out and start digging, and there it is, just what they talked about. It's not some long ago in a galaxy far, far away. These are real things, in these Bible books that were actually there at the time. It says, your eyes are like the pools of Heshbon, and the gates of Bath Ribbon are daughters of a multitude or many people. There's some famous gates connected with that city that you would go through. Your nose is like the Tower of Lebanon, which faces towards Damascus. So they must have had some great tower that was located there. I don't know that that'd be the greatest thing to say you've got a nose like a tower or not, but I guess it was a sign of beauty for her. They thought it was a good thing to compare it to in those days. A very beautiful tower. It says your head crowned like Carmel, and flowing locks of your head like purple threads. The king is captivated by your tresses. So you can see Carmel there is, of course, the port city there on the coast and sticks out in the water. And on top of it, you can see the ruins of temples that were built up there on the top. That's where the contest between Elijah and the prophets of Baal was conducted. A very beautiful place. Don't we have places like in California that are named Carmel after that because it's a beautiful place? And so your head is crowned like Carmel. Very beautiful hair upon your head. It is this dark hair that when the sun catches it, it almost looks purple, is the way that they describe her hair. And the king, he's so captivated by your hair. You really need to come back to us and stay here and be with us and be with the king. And then Solomon makes a fourth proposal, and he gets more and more sexual as you go along here about what his interests are in her. And here he makes his final appeal about her charms. In verses chapter 7, 6, and 7, how beautiful and how delightful you are, my love, and all your charms. Your stature is like a palm tree, and your breasts are like clusters like it's clusters. So, it's just all of this outward attractiveness and sexuality that she has. And, wouldn't it be great for him to marry her? And verses 8 and 9, I said, I will climb the palm tree. I will take hold of its fruit stalks. Oh, may your breasts be like clusters of the vine, and the fragrance of your breath like apples, and your mouth like the best wine. Oh, the kind of satisfaction that we could have, and I could have. If you married me, let's go ahead and go through with this. She's not going to respond. Every time he does this, she always goes back to her beloved shepherd. She goes back to think, I could have all of your fruits and so on here and satisfaction, but she says, no, that's going to be for my beloved. She responds and says no, basically. It goes down smoothly for my beloved, flowing gently through the lips of those who fall asleep. No, the wine of my kisses and so on are going to be for my beloved. They're not going to be for Solomon. And so from here on, she's on her way out of here and back to the country is where we're going to find her, back with her shepherd, and talks about really what marriage is going to be like with her true love and what kind of satisfaction they will have in their relationship with each other in marriage. She says in 7:10, very decisively, it says, I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. So enough of this court and enough of all of this being a part of the harem and all of that. She belongs to one person, and she's going back to him, and she's going to belong to her beloved. He's going to be the one that will be satisfied with her love. So there's the wedding procession that is pictured as she gets back to her beloved in the country. Says, come, my beloved, let us go out into the country. Let us spend the night in the villages. It's not going to be in the cities and the palaces, and it's not going to be in the palace. It's going to be out in the little villages that they will go together and see. It says, let us rise early and go to the vineyards. Let us see whether the vine has budded and its blooms have opened, and whether the pomegranates have bloomed. There I will give you my love. So we're going back to the country. We'll have a marriage where we live out here among all of these things of nature that they grew up with and loved. And notice the same kind of affection that she has for these things, he also has. She says, the mandrakes have given forth fragrance, and over our door are all choice fruits, both new and old, which I have saved up for you, my beloved. So it's almost pictured as we're going to be in our own Garden of Eden. Isn't that the way it all started off with marriage, the way that God designed it with Adam and Eve? He's the author of marriage. It's oftentimes a point made at a wedding ceremony by a preacher that God's the one that invented marriage. It's a blessing and a good thing. And they were there in the garden, and all of those fruits of the garden were theirs, and all of the satisfaction that comes from becoming one flesh and living together in harmony, being helpmeet for one another. All of that is in marriage, and that's what is pictured here about marriage. She has all different kinds of choice fruits that she has laid up for him. They would evidently gather their fruit and put them up above the door to keep them out of reach and let them ripen and so on. And so all of that is laid up for her beloved. Verse 1 of chapter 8 says, oh, that you were like a brother to me, who nursed at my mother's breast. If I found you outdoors, I would kiss you. No one would despise me either. So I guess growing up in that society out there in the rural areas, they had a lot of strict rules on the courting of men and women and restrictions and so on. But she's looking forward to the time when they'll be together permanently, that he could be like a brother that grows up in the house with you, is with you all the time, and that you're dear to, that the bond of blood, is not ever broken. that they could have a relationship that lasts like that you could be like a brother, like one who nursed at my mother's breast, that if I kissed you, no one would say anything. And that's, of course, once you get married, that's the way it is, isn't it? You have that close relationship that goes on, and no one despises you if you kiss your wife or hug your wife and so on. So she longs for that time to come. I would lead you and bring you into the house of my mother, who used to instruct me. I would give you spiced wine to drink from the juice of. I cut off the verse there. I guess you can read the rest of that. But anyway, they have. She's looking forward to being able to take him home to mom. Right? There's somebody that I think one writer said if you're dating somebody and you can't take them home to your parents, then you got a problem, right? But she's anxious to be able to take him home and take him to her mother's house. There's never mention in the book about her father. So talk about her brothers being in charge and her mother, but you don't hear about makes you think maybe was her father, had he passed away or something. But she'd love to be able to take him home and be in the home. This doesn't sound at all like the whole thing going on with Solomon, does it? It sounds like a whole different kind of relationship with a different person out here in the country. So this idea that there's two different male characters that are vying for her affection seems to be clear. It says, let his hand be under my head and his arm or his hand embrace me. So she's looking forward to the loving embrace that she'll be able to have with the shepherd in a proper marriage that they have and what they were intended for. And then she describes, again, this statement that's been repeated. So obviously, this is the third time it's been said, that it's one of the main points to get across, is that you don't try to stir up love artificially between people that don't have affection, but you let love awaken naturally for one another in this type of relationship. It says, I want you to swear, O daughters of Jerusalem, do not arouse or awaken my love until it pleases. So she said that 3 times, that you can't force this love. It's got to be something that's real, and it's a natural thing, and that's what she's got for the shepherd and not for Solomon. So quit trying to force this. Then the wedding festival in chapter 8 and verses 5 through 7. We see the Shulamite then finally with her shepherd. It's not imaginary, but she's actually pictured with him now. It says, who is this coming up from the wilderness, leaning on her beloved? So here they are walking along, and now we don't hear any more about the court women or any of that. We're back home. And the shepherd says, beneath the apple tree I awakened you. There your mother was in labor with you. There she was in labor and gave you birth. We're told that in ancient times, old times, there was a lot of times that births took place outside. Here it was sometime in the past under an apple tree, I guess, that the first sparks of love started. And it said the same place where you were born. So they evidently this is grown up in the same area. They've known each other in the past. And that's where it all began for them. And verses 6, it says, put me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm. For love is as strong as death, jealousy as severe as Sheol. It flashes, are the flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. So let's have a covenant and that is like having a seal. I mean, you have a seal that you would mark your property. They had seals that they put on documents to show that it was something you authorized, it belonged to you, the statements within and so on. And they need to have a seal. She needs to have a seal on her heart. She's no longer going to have any thoughts about Solomon or anybody else, but you're going to belong to me, and I'm going to belong to you. And that's the way it should be when we enter into marriage, isn't it? You have a seal that's on your heart and on your arm, and we recognize, the power that there is in love. Love is a powerful thing. It's a dangerous thing. I mean, when you get to thinking about I watch a lot of these shows, Melissa and I, on ID about the different murder shows and investigations and all of that. How many times does it have to do with somebody got jilted and love and lust, and that gets involved in it, and adultery, and somebody kills somebody? I mean, it is death. Love is powerful. It drives people out of their minds sometimes. And the Bible emphasizes that. You don't want to get in the way of a jealous person. It can lead to a lot of trouble. So let's make a seal, let's make a pact that we're going to belong to each other, and that's it. There's not going to be anybody else intruding into these things, because jealousy is as severe as Sheol. And that is a fact. We serve a God who's a jealous God. He wants an exclusive relationship with us. We're not supposed to be committing adultery with the world or with any other god. We have one Lord, one master that we serve, one husband. And that's what is stated here. Love it flashes like a fire, the very flame of the Lord. Here's the one time in the book where God is mentioned in the book. And, of course, God is the author of our emotions and author of love. He is love, so He knows all about love. And it is a flame of fire. We need to guard it and protect it and keep it alive between the two of us, but shouldn't have anybody else intruding in that. And then sort of the lesson from the book for all of us to take to heart about the power of true love and what she's kind of proven, getting swept up with the king and hearing all of that praise about her beauty and all of the offers of jewels and positions of honor and power and splendor and all of that she could have if she'd give up her shepherd lover and go with Solomon. Well, she says, many waters cannot quench love. That's something that's been proven in the book, that this flame of love, many waters can't put it out. It's one of those eternal flames if it's true, and you can't put it out. Nor will rivers overflow it. If a man were to give all the riches of his house for love, it would be utterly despised. And that's really what Solomon tried to do, wasn't it? He tried to buy love, and he could not buy it. When somebody really loves somebody, that doesn't matter if they're offered $1 million or whatever to run away with them. They're not going to go. That's not going to work. Love is supposed to be something that there's nobody can tempt you away from that commitment of love that we have. So then at weddings, they often had a wedding riddle. You remember the riddle that was given at Samson's wedding that he had about out of the eater came something sweet, about the lion and the honey that he got out of the lion's carcass there that they couldn't guess. Well, here the friends say, we have a little sister, and she has no breast. What shall we do for our sister on the day when she is spoken for? So here you've got a young girl, and she's about to come into the time where she'll be courting and dating and all of these kind of things. And how are we going to treat this little sister, they asked the Shulamite. And the Shulamite gives an answer. She says, if she is a wall, we shall build on her a battlement of silver. So, children are not all the same, are they? All of us have different strengths and weaknesses and different temperaments. Some people are more naive and more flirtatious and so on than other people. And others have more self-restraint and control of themselves. So some young girls are like a wall. They have their mind made up about their purity and about how they're going to behave themselves. And if you've got someone that you have a child that you can trust, that they've shown themselves to be responsible and serious and so on, certainly they get greater freedoms, right? You don't just go by, well, this is the way we treated your brother or your sister or whatever when they were coming along. Everybody's got to be dealt with individually according to what the circumstances are. We're not all the same. So you see that she is like the Shulamite. Oh, we're going to enhance her and build her with her walls up with battlements of silver. We're going to, she'll have more freedom and adornment and so on. But if she is a door, if she's a girl that can't say no, like in the play Oklahoma, There's a girl in there that sings a song. I'm just a girl that can't say no, right? And she's the boys always seem to get to her no matter what. They start talking pretty to her, and she's, right? That's the whole picture here. Well, some girls, you've got to put a lot more rules on when you need to be home and where you're going to be and whether you're going to be able to go alone here or there or whatever. And they say, if she is a door, we shall barricade her with planks of cedar. We're going to put restrictions on, right? We're going to have to help her out in maintaining her purity and not make mistakes in her youth. So in verse 10 it says, I was a wall, the Shulamite says, and my breasts were like towers. Then I became in his eyes as one who finds peace. So she had self-control and self-restraint and integrity about herself and what she was going to do with her body and so on. And she was a wall, and so she is to be praised. And we can see why Solomon, if he wrote this book in his old age, like the book of Ecclesiastes, where he's looking back at all the mistakes of his life, and he's showing us all of the vain things of this world that he'd chased after, and gives us that good advice that really life is about serving God and keeping His commandments and loving your wife and your husband and enjoying the food that you get, the simple pleasures of work and so on. That's what life is about. But he'd also talk about what true love is about at the end. I've had all of these wives. I've had all of this, and I didn't have what this Shulamite had, right? And he writes a song for us by inspiration and gives it to us to tell us about it. Solomon had a vineyard at Baal Hamon. So maybe this is part of how all of this started. He's going out to see his, government-owned vineyards that he's got all over the land. And she's out skipping along, out looking at the springtime, and she got caught up in this whole thing. So she's got her own little vineyard, but Solomon's got a big vineyard. And he pays money to people to take care of it. He entrusted the vineyard to caretakers. Each one was to bring 1,000 shekels of silver for its fruits. So he got a lot of money from his vineyard. Solomon, he's got his caretakers and he's got his vineyard and he can pay out his money. But her love is not for sale, right? She's not a part of this. She doesn't owe Solomon anything. Her body belongs to her. It says, my very own vineyard is at my disposal. The 1,000 shekels are for Solomon, and 200 are for those who take care of its fruits. But she doesn't have to be a part of Solomon's whole gig that he's got going on, right? She can stay there in the country with her shepherd and have her own life and have her own vineyard and not be involved in all of these things. So then in verses 13 and 14, we come to the end of the book. And the shepherd says to her, O you who sit in the gardens, my companions are listening for your voice. Let me hear it. So it's almost like the vows that they would have in answering that they're going to be one. And then she responds, says, hurry, my beloved, and be like a gazelle and a young stag on the mountains of spices. So they end with this mutual call to one another to be together and to be together forever. So I hope that this at least gets close to what what is intended by the poet and by the Holy Spirit in giving us this book. I hope it's been profitable for you, and this outline will be helpful maybe in instructing other people. I'm sure there's lots more to be gleaned, like from all the books of the Bible, than what we've been able to hit in this brief overview, but I'll leave the lesson with you. At this time, we want to have a word of prayer and be dismissed to our Bible classes.